If you add sugar to any food, any processed food, you will sell more of it. It's that simple. It's the easiest trick in the book.
What's the human proclivity for sugar?
Sweetness is energy, right? It's carbohydrate energy. And so we are hardwired to seek out both sugar and fat. And that's fine when it's hard to find or when you have to work hard to get it. But now we can get sugar 24/7 and it's really cheap. So it's part of that series of misfits between our biology and the world we've created. That we've made something that should take a lot of hard work very easy to get. And with the result that people binge on it. And it is an addictive food. So now you see sugar in places that never were sweetened. Bread, for example. Bread never had sugar in it, but commercial breads now have sugar in it. Ketchup, condiments of all kinds, full of sugar now. It's become very hard to avoid sugar.
What about restaurants?
Restaurants, it's very hard to control what you're eating because you don't know what they're doing. You don't know if they're using a lot of butter. You don't know if they're using a lot of sugar.
They probably are.
Yeah, good chance, good chance. Restaurant food tends to be richer than the food we eat at home. I mean, look, I've said many times that instead of dieting, just cook. If you cook, it will take care of the calorie problem. You will not you will not be as extravagant with fat and sugar as any restaurant at home. So the very fact of preparing your own food is a check on overeating.
So this word organic, I'm never sure what that means.
Well, organic, actually, of all the labels in the supermarket, it's probably the most reliable now, since the government began regulating organic after 2001 or 2. It is a audited set of protocols for what kinds of pesticides can and cannot be used, for how the soil needs to be treated on a farm, for how the animals are to be treated and what they're to be fed and whether they receive pharmaceuticals. And basically, you can count on it. There is a little bit of fraud in organic, but not that much. You can count on that food to have no synthetic pesticides in it, that the animals are not given antibiotics, for example, or any other pharmaceuticals. So it actually means something. So if you're buying organic because you're concerned about chemicals in your diet, that's a good call. You can avoid chemicals, the worst chemicals in agriculture by buying organic. If you're concerned about climate change, for example, and you want to eat in a way that is sustainable, organic was those rules were designed before we knew about climate change or before we cared about it. So in some ways, organic agriculture can be more energy intensive because if you're not, just as one example, if you're not using chemicals to control weeds, you're going to be tilling over and over again, which every time you till, you release carbon in the atmosphere and you use energy to drive your tractors. So it's not a perfect label, but it is firmer than so many of the other, labels.
These two quotes really have got me thinking, and one is food is culture, and culture is the key to eating well. Can you elaborate?
It's a medium because you can express yourself. I mean, you're 15 and you want to assert your values, and you announce to your parents, "I am a vegan. I am never going to eat meat again." You have said something about yourself. You put a stake in the ground. Food is our first political act, I believe. The baby in the high chair, the 1-year-old, and the parent has the fork, and the fork is full of baby food or whatever, and the kid decides, do I take this into my body or not? And if you want to say no, just purse your lips. That's your first political act, that refusal. It's the first time you have any autonomy. A couple things that are really weird about American eating, and one is the fact that the poorer you are, the more you struggle with obesity. For most of human history, the rich have been round, and it was a sign of wealth, that you could afford to have a big belly. And the poor were painfully thin. That's reversed now. So why is that? Well, the kinds of calories that are cheapest in our society, which are calories of sugar and fat, have been made cheap in large part because of the agricultural policies we have. So if you're a poor person and you have a limited budget, just take a look at the supermarket through that lens. You are going to end up, let's say you have $1 to spend, and this research has been done by economists, and you're maximizing calories because you're trying to feed a hungry child. You are going to end up in the processed food aisles where you can get 1,200 calories of chips, for example. But if you take the same dollar and you go to the fresh produce, you can only get 250 calories of carrots or broccoli. So what's the rational choice? The rational choice, if you're trying to keep a belly full, is to buy crap. So we've created a system where the poorer you are, the worse you eat. We produce a lot of calories. It's just that the healthy calories are too expensive for the poor to access. It's an issue for politics. I mean, it's very important to understand that the way we eat in America is in large part driven by the agricultural policies, most of which are enshrined in something called the Farm Bill, a piece of legislation most of us pay no attention to at all. Comes around every 5 years, it's being wrangled over right now, and it really sets the rules of the game. What kinds of farming will be encouraged, what kinds of crops will be encouraged. And in general, for the last 50 years, we've encouraged the growing of corn and soy. And corn and soy are the building blocks of the fast food diet. It's how you feed the animals that become the McDonald's hamburger or chicken nuggets. And it's how you make the sweetener for the soda and the soy fat to fry the potatoes in. That's what we subsidize. That's what we encourage our farmers to grow. And as long as that's the case, you're going to have a situation where the poor can't afford to eat healthy food.
Has your work had any influence in Congress's decisions?
I don't think so. I mean, around the margins maybe. I mean, there have been certain issues I've gotten involved with where we've made some progress on the Farm Bill, on food safety and things like that. But in general, no. I mean, I think if my work has had an influence, it's in the conversation about food, which has barely penetrated the U.S. Congress. But you know, the Congress doesn't lead. The Congress follows, and it will only be when you know, you have an aroused citizenry around these issues. We have not made great progress. I have no illusions about that. But this is a generations-long fight, and you know, it's going to go on for a very long time. And I'm encouraged enough by just changes in the marketplace, the growth of farmers markets, the growth of organic food, the growth of sustainable farming. And also what encourages me most is this generation of young people going back to the land. It'll take a new generation of farmers with a different set of values.